Principia Theologica, Lecture 4, The Mind of God. Hi, Sol Soler here. Lecture 4 in Principia Theologica, and in this lecture we're going to apply the principles of the physics of consciousness to the universe as a whole and speculate on the possibility of the mind of the universe, which would be the mind of God. Okay, before we begin, just a quick recap of where we stand now after our first 3 lectures. So we've changed the fundamental postulate of consciousness about our universe. So where conventionally scientists have believed that the energy created in a Big Bang was non-conscious and the particles formed out of it are non-conscious, we've changed that postulate to the only other logical possibility, which is that the energy created in the Big Bang possessed and still possesses intrinsic consciousness. Okay. We're using that to make that postulate and the principles of the physics of consciousness to make a scientific approach to God. So, in this lecture, I'm going to read a paper I wrote that sketches some of the first totally scientific, rigorously scientific, theoretical models of the mind of God. So, science has never dealt with, rigorous physics, theoretical physics has never dealt with God before at all. It's just dealt with particles and time and space and mass and accelerations and movement and things like that. But now that we've got the correct postulate of consciousness, and we know it's the correct postulate of consciousness because it gives us the correct interpretation of quantum mechanics, which is for 100 years hasn't had a satisfactory interpretation, and it also solves the hard problem of consciousness, which similarly scientists haven't been able to solve for more than 100 years. So we know we've got the correct postulate, and this allows us for the first time to start talking scientifically and reasonably and intelligently about God, because God is a conscious entity. So we need some scientific understanding of consciousness before we can achieve some scientific understanding of God, because God is a conscious entity. And actually, I misspoke there and said God's a scientific entity. I think God is also a scientific entity. I think the mind of our universe our universe as a whole is intelligent and has configured itself into a scientific, rational, and logical universe, which is why we are able to understand. And that's why we're able to understand the logic of our universe. In fact, that's what physics is. It's humans trying to work out the logic of our universe. And as Einstein said, the most unintelligible thing about our universe, the most shocking, surprising thing about our universe is that it's intelligible, is what Einstein said. Meaning that the fact that we can make some logical, intelligent sense of our universe naturally suggests that it itself has arranged itself logically and intelligently, which would suggest that it's intelligent. So the first thing to do in the physics of God is to make God plausible. Currently, if you're a scientist, God isn't plausible at all. The tendency is to believe, or scientists believe, that all energy is devoid of consciousness, that our consciousness is just a mistake, and it's an anomaly, and it just pops into existence for 75 years, and then you die, and you stop existing for eternity. So that viewpoint, as we discussed in the previous lecture, makes God totally implausible. That's a nightmare. But the first thing we have to do is make God scientifically plausible. We're a scientific species, so for us to believe in God, for us to believe in God, not gods, one God. This is very much a monotheistic picture of God, which is important. God needs to become scientifically plausible first. And this always reminds me of DNA, the discovery of DNA. The first thing that had to happen for DNA was for it to be discovered, before Watson and Crick could start looking for it. And what they did was spent their careers trying to isolate DNA. The first thing that had to happen was for DNA to be conceived of. And it wasn't conceived of by Watson and Crick. It was actually first conceived of by the quantum physicist Erwin Schrödinger, an exceedingly great physicist who also believed that consciousness was fundamental to our universe. There's a great quote by Schrödinger that endorses my theory, and he said he believed that the deepest philosophy so far written about our universe was Vedanta, which is Hinduism, which again has had a huge influence on my work. But anyway, he was the first person to conceive of DNA, but he didn't call it DNA. He has this wonderful book called What is Life? And in passing in that book, he talks about how he's considering the hereditary aspects of the human species, and he says that information must be conveyed from one generation to another, and he suggested that this was done by an aperiodic crystal. So he didn't use the word DNA. He didn't use the words DNA. He was just speculating and making the idea plausible. And Watson and Crick read this book, or one of them at least did. I think they both did. I think they both credit this book, or at least one of them does anyway. And then they spent their careers trying to isolate this aperiodic crystal. It has to be aperiodic so it can convey information. So, so first of all, before you start investigating something scientifically, you have to conceive of it first. So, and find it plausible. So similarly now, these are the first truly scientific sketches or theoretical models of the mind of God. So for our understanding of God to be truly scientific, it has to be based in well-defined scientific things, and it has to be based on observable things. So if we conceive of God as some entity separate to the universe, outside of this universe, well then science can't have anything to say about it, because science can only talk about this physical universe. That's all it's capable of talking about. That's all our measuring apparatus are capable of measuring. Stuff within this universe. So if God exists outside of this universe, well, we can never say anything about him scientifically. And by the way, I tend to refer to God as him and he. That's just because of how I was brought up. It's not that I conceive of God as male. Sometimes I say they or them as well. And it's just, I don't want to, I just want to think about physics while I'm giving these lectures. I don't want to worry about correct pronouns and things like that but naturally I was brought up, with God being referred to as he. I don't think God is a he. I think God is much more than he or much more than she. God is he plus she and plus many other attributes. So if we want a scientific understanding of God, it has to be based on well-defined scientific things. And all that's defined in science is really energy, because everything's made out of energy within space-time. So our scientific conception of God is that God is the intelligence of the universe as a whole, and that there has been some intelligent guidance in the evolution of the universe to get us to this point in time and the way the universe is configured now, including humans. So in this scientific conception of God, the universe taken as a whole makes a very immense mind. All the energy is conscious. What is your mind? Your mind is primarily within your brain. And that's just a bunch of conscious particles that are energetically connected to one another. And each configuration of them corresponds to a conscious state that you experience, and you can use them to think, and you can control, your brain is plastic, so you can control your thoughts and will them into, choose the nature of your thoughts, and you can imagine things and picture things and stuff like that. So then if all the energy of the universe is conscious, and I've shown that it is, then the universe as a whole is very likely to be creating one mind, one very immense mind, which has some conscious and intelligent control over how it evolves. So there we see that God is not some separate, mysterious being outside of the universe. God is a mind, a brain, a very, very immense brain. Now, theologians in the past have jumped to the conclusion that God is infinitely intelligent. We're trying to come up with a scientific conception of God, so we don't jump to any conclusions at all. In this picture of God, the mind of God has the same magnitude as our universe. It may be bigger, this universe may be one of many connected universes, but we have no evidence of that yet. So all we can say is that the mind of God is at least the same size. The brain is at least the same size as our physical universe, with as many stars are likely to take the place of neurons in this mind, and there are as many stars as we estimate there are in the universe. So that would be the magnitude of the brain. Now, of the mind, from a human perspective, that's an intelligence that will be indistinguishable from an infinite intelligence. But it just technically wouldn't be an infinite intelligence. It would be a finite intelligence because the universe is finite, but it'd be a very, very immense intelligence. It would also be an intelligence that has been evolving and thinking for some 14 billion years. So that's a brief sketch. These ideas, as they become more and more plausible to the scientific community, they'll be refined, and there may even be tests for signs of this intelligence. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read an essay, a short essay that I wrote, where I outline some of the ideas concerning how to construct theoretical scientific models of the mind of God. Okay, the mind of the universe, if you prefer. Now, do we have any evidence for this mind at the moment? We actually do. It solves a long-standing mystery. So this is how we progress in physics. We choose certain theories because they solve a whole host of mysteries. If one theory comes along and solves a whole host of mysteries that previously couldn't be solved, and then you come up with, what if we tried this postulate, this idea, and then it solves a whole bunch of mysteries, that gives us confidence that we've got a good theory. So far, our postulate of intrinsic consciousness has solved the hard problem of consciousness. It explains why you're conscious, because everything you're made of is conscious. And it solves quantum mechanics, the interpretation of quantum mechanics. I'm using the postulate also to come up with conscious derivations of special and general relativity. And there's another mystery it solves, or at least begins to solve. Again, remember, at the moment we're just trying to make a scientific God plausible. And in the next lecture is the human soul, and I'll come up with scientific models to make the human soul plausible, and more plausible than you not having a human soul. And as soon as you conceive of God as plausible, it will change you don't have to have 100% faith. It's just, it will radically change your life just to find God truly plausible. Because then you won't be able to resist this possibility from affecting the way you behave. And then if you are, but this is from my experience, it will affect your behavior in such a way that your life improves, and the improvement in your life, the increased health and happiness will kind of snowball into ever increasing faith in God. And that's basically how faith in God works. You have to make the experiment to prove that God exists. You have to do yourself. Belief in God is subjective, so you have to do the experiment yourself. No one can do it for you, and it requires changes in your behavior. Okay, I'll get to that in a later lecture. Sorry, what was I? Oh yes, so we're using our theory to solve mysteries. Now there's another long-standing mystery in physics, and that mystery is known as the fine-tuning of our universe. Now, the postulate of intrinsic consciousness, that all energy is conscious and always has been, and means the universe has always been conscious, and the physical evolution of the universe has been a conscious evolution where the universe is making conscious choices as to how it evolves into the future. This conscious mind of the universe solves the fine-tuning of our universe. It is one possible, very plausible, very intuitive solution to the mystery of the fine-tuning of our universe. So I'm going to begin reading my essay now, and you can see what you think. So I begin the essay by saying, in this essay we apply the principles of consciousness to the mystery of the apparent fine-tuning of our universe for the emergence of complex life forms. So we need to bear in mind that scientists till now haven't come up with any very plausible or convincing ways of explaining this, whereas my postulate of intrinsic consciousness makes for a very intuitive and logical solution. So I then say, let's allow Stephen Hawking to state the fine-tuning problem for us. And someone did comment, oh, Stephen Hawking's an atheist. And I didn't actually reply to him, but I will reply to that person who commented now and say, yeah, I know, I like irony. So that's why I'm using Stephen Hawking's quote. And it's a good quote. So yeah, I know that Stephen Hawking was very much an atheist, and I like irony. So let's allow Stephen Hawking to state the fine-tuning problem for us. So Stephen Hawking says, the laws of science as we know them at present contain many fundamental numbers, like the size of the electric charge of the electron and the ratio of the masses of the proton and the electron. The remarkable fact is that the values of these numbers seem to have been very finely adjusted to make possible the development of life. So that's a mystery in conventional science. But as soon as we consider that the universe is a conscious entity, well, then that fine adjustment becomes immediately understandable. The universe herself, or their self, has consciously made adjustments to their own physical configuration, just like you make adjustments to your physical configuration consciously. You shift around in a chair to get comfortable. You control your actions consciously. The universe has consciously controlled its physical configuration, its physical properties, consciously adjusted itself to make the development of life possible. Why? Because the universe, like yourself, is conscious and intrinsically creative and exists and wants to live as meaningful an existence as possible. And like having children creates meaning for us, naturally, intrinsically, having children brings about a great amount increases the meaning of your life tremendously, by all accounts. I'm yet to have children. And similarly for the universe at large, being creative and creating creatures such as ourselves and helping us evolve and making us more and more intelligent, which is teaching us, which is what evolution is, brings more meaning to the existence of the universe, the conscious existence of the universe. Because bear in mind, the universe has been around for 14 billion years. That's a lot of time to kill. So making humans helps to make that passage of time interesting and meaningful for the universe at large. Okay, and there could be, well, no, I won't get to that now. So now I'll just continue reading the essay. So now we apply the principles of the physics of consciousness to the problem and see if we can make any sense out of it. We begin by stating the postulate of fundamental consciousness. All energy created in the Big Bang and therefore all the particles formed out of that energy are conscious, are the physical manifestation of consciousness. And then I give the link to the audio essay where I prove that. That essay is called The Truth About Quantum Mechanics and Consciousness. Okay. Next, we state some undeniable properties of this basic conscious energy. Okay, so proposition 1, the basic conscious energy of our universe is capable of producing individual conscious physical formations out of itself that possess intelligence and creativity. Well, the proof is obvious. You are one such individual consciousness. Proof, since all energy possesses consciousness, all formations of energy are also conscious. Humans are formed entirely out of conscious energy and exhibit intelligence and creativity, QED. To deny this proof is to deny that people like Beethoven, Shakespeare, and Newton, and of course your good self, are actually intelligent and creative or conscious. Denials that contradict the normal everyday ways you have lived your entire life. Proposition 2. Our physical brains, along with input from the physical bodies they are embedded in, generate our conscious states, including our conscious abilities of intelligence and creativity. Proof. The whole scientific corpus of neurobiology attests to this fact. Physical changes in the brain reliably and predictably correlate with changes in conscious state, QED. Okay, so we're just saying the physical energy and matter of your body and brain produce your conscious state within themselves. Okay, proposition 3. Our physical bodies and brains are nothing but configurations of energetically connected energy and matter. Proof. This is scientific fact. Now, people might say, oh no, consciousness comes from another dimension and your brain is an antenna for it. That's fine. I have no problem with people believing different things, but that's just not a scientific belief. Because there's no evidence for these extra dimensions and there's no evidence for this transmitted consciousness. So the human body has been scientifically inspected on all scales, and nothing within it has ever been observed that isn't formed out of energy and material formations of energy like neurons and particles. So that's why our theory of the human soul, in my scientific theories of the human soul is made out of energy and particles. It's just a very special configuration of them. Okay, proposition 4. All the conscious energy and matter of our universe is energetically connected. This proposition has been proven by modern physics. There is no such thing as empty space, since all space is permeated with the radiation known as the cosmic background radiation, as well as the energy forming the gravitational and electrical fields of the universe. And all physical objects are black bodies, which means they are constantly absorbing and emitting radiation from and into the radiation-filled space around them. So that's just saying that you are in energetic connection with the universe around you because you are constantly emitting light and absorbing light into and from the universe around you. Because of the finite speed of light, some regions of the universe are too distant from one another to communicate, but there still exists a chain of energetic connection between them, and every physical object in the universe is embedded in the same cosmic background radiation field, as well as the same gravitational and electric fields. Okay, then, so those are just some scientific facts about our universe. Combining these propositions, we can conclude that our physical universe taken as a whole is schematically equivalent to an exceedingly large mind, which makes the concept of the mind of our universe a scientifically plausible possibility. So we make the mind of our universe plausible, and then we look around for signs of intelligence. Okay, but let's move on with the essay. So, the mind of the universe. We have added fundamental consciousness to the list of fundamental properties of energy, and then by analogy with our own human neurobiology, as well as our own experience of consciousness, we can logically speculate on the nature of the consciousness of the universe taken as a whole. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now, and we're going to start with the Big Bang. So we go all the way back to the beginning of time to the Big Bang. So, the Big Bang. All the conscious energy of our universe was created within a seemingly infinitesimal region of space some 14 billion years ago. This first configuration of our universe is the heaviest, densest, and most symmetrical object that has ever existed. There's never been a denser or more symmetrical. There's no sign that the universe had any angular momentum when it came into existence. It's also the simplest object that's ever existed. The first state of the universe was also the simplest state that has ever been. Since then, it's expanded, created particles, and it's just got more and more complex, up to and including the creation of the human brain, an exceedingly complex configuration. But in the Big Bang, it was just one totally homogeneous ball of almost infinitely dense energy. Very simple object. Okay, it contained this Big Bang object contained more mass than all the black holes in the universe put together, since it literally contained all the mass that subsequently formed these black holes, plus all the rest of the mass of the universe. All the mass of the universe was in that black hole. Physically, it was very similar to a black hole, identical in fact. And there is no evidence that it possessed any angular momentum whatsoever in this first state. Our universe does not seem to be spinning itself as a whole. That is, our large-scale universe does appear to be expanding but not rotating. It also did not initially possess any electric charge, since charged particles were yet to be formed. Okay, so now we analyze this first state using Einstein's general relativity. And don't worry if you haven't studied general relativity, we won't go into too much detail. Thus, we can use Einstein's general relativity to mathematically describe the spatial physics of this first object. And we see that the first object, the Big Bang object, the universe ever made was an exceedingly massive Schwarzschild black hole. These are black holes that possess neither angular momentum nor electric charge. Okay, so that's what the Big Bang was. It was a black hole, particularly a Schwarzschild black hole. Schwarzschild was just a physicist that he was the first person to solve Einstein's equations of general relativity. So, Schwarzschild black holes are perfectly symmetrical objects. Thus, we know that the first Big Bang object was perfectly spherical and symmetrical, which is interesting. And also, it's very interesting to remember that all the energy that forms your body was in that black hole, was in that Big Bang. And so was all the energy from my body, and all of our energy shared in the first conscious experience of the Big Bang, which is very fascinating. Since its subsequent expansion and physical evolution were from a configuration of perfect symmetry, it is not surprising that symmetry and symmetry laws are so essential to our mathematical understanding of our early universe and the physical laws then established. So symmetry is very important in physics, which is not surprising because the first object that the universe was perfectly symmetrical. And since then, it's been deviating slightly from symmetry all the time. Been getting less, it's still very symmetrical, but it's much less symmetrical. And that's evidence of creativity, this divergence away from symmetry. Okay. So what can we say about the conscious state of the first moment of the Big Bang? Well, as humans, we are very different configurations of conscious energy. So we can say very little with any certainty. However, the little that we can say with certainty is philosophically very profound. The Big Bang object was a singular and totally homogenized sphere, devoid of any internal differentiation or separate parts. Therefore, we know that the first conscious state of our universe was totally singular, unified, one. So the first conscious state of the universe was one conscious experience. The universe was a singular individual. It had to be, because it was all compressed into the same point of space. And it was totally homogeneous. There were no systems or particles or information or anything. It was just one singular point of incredibly dense energy, totally homogeneous. And the truly astonishing thing is that every joule of the energy forming both yourself and myself were present within, as well as consciously shared in the experience of that first conscious state, whatever it may have been. One plausible possibility is bliss. The simplest conscious understanding of physics follows a pleasure-pain principle, but that's for another essay. Yeah, you can come up with a theory of evolution that is based on pleasure and pain. But yeah, as I say, that's for another essay. Not only that, but since energy can be neither created nor destroyed, every joule of energy forming you is at the tail end of a 14 billion year long continuous physical and conscious process, culminating in whatever conscious part it is playing in your conscious experience of hearing these words. Okay, so the formation of you and you hearing my words now is the culmination of a physical and conscious process that has taken 14 billion years. Because all science is, science has shown that our universe is evolves continuously. It's all continuous processes. And your conscious experience at this moment is one small subset of the conscious evolution of our universe. And thus, from a technical scientific perspective, it is much truer for you to give your age as 14 billion years than whatever age you think you are, since every single thing you are formed out of is formed out of energy that was all born in exactly the same moment 14 billion years ago. Happy 14 billionth year birthday. Yeah. So all the energy that makes you up, that you're formed out of, is actually 14 billion years old. There's not a part of you that is not 14 billion years old. So as I say, happy 14 billionth year birthday. Okay, so now we move away from the black hole, or we expand away from the black hole into the early universe. Okay, the early universe. But then the first state did something that no Schwarzschild black hole has ever been witnessed to do by explosively expanding and creating particles out of itself. That this took place proves that it taking place was a physical possibility involved, and involution is the reverse of evolution, involved in the first state. So by involved, I mean if some state evolved out of a preceding state, we say the possibility of the new state was involved in its preceding states. Okay. So in a sense, what I'm saying is that the future is somewhat contained and implied in the present. Like our present situation now places constraints on future possibilities. Okay, that's all I'm saying. So that is, every physical state proceeding after and out of the first Big Bang state must have been a physical possibility involved in its preceding state. It is obviously, indeed tautologically impossible for a system to evolve into a state that isn't a member of its set of possible future states. Okay, so to evolve into a future state, that future state has to be possible. So you can evolve into the future state of getting up and going for a walk, but you can't evolve into the future state of flying out your window because you can't fly. It's not possible. Since all energy is conscious, every physical state of the universe is also a conscious state, and all future states are consciously selected by the universe itself from the set of possible future states involved in its preceding state. So yeah, what we're saying is that the evolution of the universe is based on conscious choices made by the universe at each point in the evolution. The Big Bang state was a sphere of pure conscious energy, with the potential involved within it to become any future state it could imagine, as long as there existed a continuous chain of possible future states leading to that state and beginning with the initial Big Bang state. So yeah, for the universe to get from the Big Bang to where we are now, that's a whole series of evolutionary steps, and each step has to be possible, obviously, or else it couldn't happen. And each step is also a conscious choice. And you now, yourself, are responsible for the future evolution of the universe, but not the whole universe, just the parts that you control. So your body and, you can change the configuration of the universe around you. You can clean up your room or whatever, or mess up your room, whatever you want, and you're changing the configuration of the universe. It's just you don't have total control because you're just a small individual. But you can see how you changing your configuration, you're consciously changing the configuration of the universe. And what I'm saying is, since the beginning of time, the change in configuration of the universe, it's all been conscious choice made by the universe herself and subsets of the universe. A nice analogy here is pluripotent cells, or stem cells as they're known. The human body begins life as an undifferentiated spherical mass of cells that are capable of becoming any of the differentiated cells of the body. For example, stem cells can become eye cells or liver cells, etc. So yeah, when you have a baby begins life as just a ball of pluripotent cells. Pluripotent just means that they can have the power to become any number of different cells. So that's somewhat analogous to the initial Big Bang state, where the ball of conscious energy had the possibility to become any number of different possible universes, but it chose to follow the path that it's followed, leading to us here, communicating with one another. Okay, our universe, likewise, was a sphere of energy potentially capable of forming all of the forms we see around us. If this wasn't the case, then we wouldn't see all the forms we see around us, because the universe wouldn't have possessed the potential to create them. That's just obvious. Our universe has developed from a very simple, non-complex state of pure potential into a much more complex and specific state, namely the exact configuration of our universe we see around us now. You yourself have developed in an exactly analogous way from a sphere of pure cellular potential into your current specific and much more complex form. Okay. So conscious evolution. Next. So that's the early universe. Now we move on to the mind of our universe. The totipotent first state of our universe was consciously capable of forming particles out of itself. That's undeniable. Particles exist. Since brains are nothing but energetically connected configurations of particles capable of logically modifying their own configuration, with the creation of particles, our universe also created the possibility of logical thought for and within herself. Hence, she was capable of consciously imposing mathematical logic and order on her own physical form. God enjoys maths. So, yeah, your brain is just a very large number of energetically connected conscious particles in a complex configuration, and you can change their configuration. When you imagine something, you're changing the configuration of your brain, which is changing your conscious experience, and it creates the conscious experience of whatever you're imagining. And once the universe created particles, it was capable of thinking. And then the early universe was just one singular, very central, spherically symmetric, large brain. And this brain was capable of consciously imposing mathematical logic and order on her own physical form. Because, just like humans, we like order and we like logic and we like mathematics and we like symmetry and we like things like that naturally and intuitively, and so did the universe. So the universe made her physical form mathematical and logical. Okay, God enjoys maths, just like humans enjoy maths. So yeah, anything that we enjoy and do, it's unsurprising if we see that the universe itself likes to do it, because we are created out of this universe and all our learning has been learned from the universe around us. Like everything you've ever learned has been learned from the universe surrounding and connected to you. If your consciousness was just in a black box and you never saw or touched anything or communicated with anyone, you would never have any intelligence or you would never evolve. You need to be stimulated by the universe around you to learn anything. So everything we learn, we ultimately, in the last analysis, we learn it from the universe. Okay. The idea that your universe around you is a conscious thinking being might be a little shocking the first time it is encountered as a plausible possibility of your reality. But it shouldn't really be that shocking. First of all, you're made out of nothing but the universe, and you're capable of logical thought. So yeah, you're made of nothing but the same energy and particles, and you're capable of thinking. So why would you appropriate that ability to just yourself? That's a very pure example of anthropocentrism. Humans are conscious and experience only human consciousness, and then they think, oh, this is the only consciousness that exists. But no, the whole universe is conscious, and everything is conscious. So stars, for example, are conscious. They just have very different conscious experience than humans. Thus, we don't really understand each other yet. And, we're such different formations, it's impossible for us to have any meaningful communication yet. But maybe, who knows, maybe that will change in the future. Okay, as Einstein said, the most unintelligible thing about our universe is that it's intelligible. And the fact that the universe is intelligible is suggestive of it being intelligent. Our universe is definitely not chaos. In fact, it exhibits a mathematical logic and beauty wherever we look. And the people who work out how our universe operates, our Newtons and Einsteins, are considered the most intelligent humans that have ever lived. Why would it take so much intelligence to work out the logic of the functioning of our universe if that logic itself wasn't the result of some intelligence? Incidentally, this is why the ancient Greek philosophers named their god the Logos, which translates as word, symbolizing the logic of language and mathematics, which in turn is a reflection of the logic of the universe it describes. So yeah, the ancient Greeks recognized that the universe around them as they studied it was logical, and then that helped them believe, Socrates and Plato, etc., believed that the universe, believe in God that they called the Logos, I mean, let's not get into Platonism now, but believed in the benign intelligence of the universe surrounding them. Okay, which is similar to what I'm saying now. Okay, and it makes more sense than the idea that our universe existed for billions of years without any part of it experiencing anything of its own existence until life eventually emerged. This way of thinking is an example of very pure anthropocentrism. Humans have historically only been capable of understanding human conscious experience and have therefore concluded that only human-like consciousness can possibly exist. So yeah, if all the energy and particles aren't conscious, then until life evolved and until consciousness switched on, which scientists don't reckon that happened, that had to happen sometime after the creation of the Earth, and the Earth was created about 4 billion years ago. So for 10 billion years approximately, the universe didn't have any experience whatsoever, which is kind of quite absurd that it existed without any experience for 10 billion years until life suddenly popped up. It's much more plausible that it's been experiencing itself within itself since the beginning of time in ways that we are yet to understand. Much more plausible. So the above allows for a very new and original as well as totally scientific conception of God, much different to the angry man in a toga in the clouds, as God is sometimes caricatured. So yeah, as I say, I'm not trying to be dogmatic and say this God definitely exists, that you have to believe in this God, nothing like that whatsoever. I'm just making God a plausible scientific reality. And as I say, let's say you already do believe in God. Let's say you're a Christian or a Buddhist or something like that. You already do believe in God, or a Hindu or a Muslim. Then finding that God is a plausible scientific reality can greatly reinforce your faith and give you stronger faith and more security in your faith. Okay, and similarly for an atheist, it can make you start questioning your atheism and maybe develop a more optimistic outlook. Okay. This conception of God is the recognition that we have undeniably been formed by nothing but the universe surrounding us, as well out of nothing but physical subsets of the same universe, and that since we are creative and intelligent, and since we are... I'm going to read that again. This conception of God is the recognition that we have undeniably been formed by nothing but the universe surrounding us, as well as out of nothing but physical subsets of the same universe, and that since we are creative and intelligent, we are creations and reflections of a surrounding creative intelligence. This is not a conception of an infinite intelligence. Our universe is not infinite, and therefore neither is its mind, but it is a conception of an intelligence so immense, possessing exactly the magnitude as the entire universe, that from a human perspective, the only perspective we can ever take, it is indistinguishable from an infinite intelligence. And besides, the insistence on God possessing infinite intelligence is just an ancient theological foolishness, since all human theologians possess all too finite and limited human intelligences, and thus have no possible way of ever determining whether some other intelligence is actually finite or just vastly superior to their own. So yeah, you often hear people talking about God, and God is infinite intelligence. Well, that's just a foolish thing for a human to say, because a human could never verify an infinite intelligence, because a human has very finite intelligence. So once intelligence reaches a certain level greater than human intelligence, its intelligence becomes indistinguishable from infinite intelligence. To a chimpanzee, us humans probably would appear as possessing almost infinite intelligence, because we're just so much more intelligent than them. Okay, that's just a side point. No human could ever verify the existence of infinite intelligence, is all I'm saying. Fine-tuning. So now we come to the fine-tuning mystery and how we solve it with the mind of the universe. This scientific theory of the mind of our universe is also a possible scientific solution to the mystery of the fine-tuning of our universe for the creation, maintenance, and evolution of complex life forms. Conscious energy was born in the Big Bang and created particles out of itself. These energetically connected particles formed a brain, allowing our universe to think and to imagine new possibilities for the future of her own existence, just like our expanded brains allow us to imagine new possibilities for our own futures. This mind encounters some of the same existential problems that we face as humans. What am I? Why am I? What should I become? How should I pass eternity without getting bored? The fine-tuning of her physical and conscious self, such that complex life can emerge, is her existential answer to these questions. Our existence contributes to her understanding of herself, since we are all physical and conscious subsets of her. We are the local result of our universe's experimentation with the evolution of conscious energy into new conscious forms. And maybe she loves us like all parents love their offspring, and maybe her intelligence is so vast that she knows what's best for us often better than we do. And maybe what's best for us in the long run can sometimes temporarily feel like torture. But maybe it's all part of an eternal learning to become and consciously experience more. All very big and very interesting maybes. The conception of God presented in this essay is totally secular. It's not affiliated with any religion. It's science, and therefore it's totally compatible with all the following religions. Hinduism. The Bhagavad Gita contains an ancient pre-scientific proof of my theory of fundamental consciousness. Buddhism. Buddhism is a contraction of Hinduism, where the particular contraction being made is the removal of a personal soul. So if you study Buddhism, it's essentially identical to Hinduism, except there's no personal soul that survives death. But of course, there are many different interpretations, and I don't want to get into debates about the intricacies of Buddhism and all its different interpretations. So I'm not insisting on any of these things. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It's very important to realize that these three religions all believe in one and exactly the same God. Jesus was a Jew, and Muhammad explicitly and repeatedly says in the Quran that he is a prophet of the same God as Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. Sikhism as well, worshipping the same God. I'm sure there are many others, but these are the religions for which I can draw one-to-one correspondence between their primary textual definitions of God and my scientific definition. And a quick note, a lot of people ask if there's one God, why are there so many different religions? Answer, if this one God or mind of the universe does exist and has played a part in and cares about our existence, then the different religions are just more and less accurate literary snapshots of the one and the same God, taken at different times and by different cultures. Where their descriptions differ are based on culturally contingent reactions to genuine belief that such a being exists. What their descriptions have in common is God. For example, imagine if 4 different TV networks each made a documentary about Joe Rogan. All 4 would present a different and inevitably incomplete picture of Joe. But from that, we should not conclude that there are 4 different Joe Rogans. What a disturbing thought. But rather that no individual network could ever produce a complete and totally impartial depiction of the mercifully singular Joe Rogan. In a future essay called The God Experiment, I will present some simple testable hypotheses to verify the existence of this universal mind. Okay, there you go. Thanks for listening. In the next essay, we are going to talk about the scientific possibility, first scientific models of the human soul made out of physical energy and particles. I believe you contain one within yourself. Okay, all the best. Thanks for listening.